the fragrance of selfless love that has drawn the world into one family. The truth of an eternal message that has been revealed through every act and word. The fulfillment in service that has been taught by relentless sacrifice. The Lord's own life is indeed His message.
Sai Ram, and welcome to the third episode in our serial presentation entitled Message of the Lord. This serial is being specially broadcast to help us all get spiritually tuned in preparation for our beloved Swami's 85th birthday. The first two episodes were mainly curtain raisers, largely meant to set the mood for what we are about to present starting today, which is mainly centered around Bhagwan Baba's teachings.
Let us begin by taking a look at how life treats different people. Some are very wealthy. The majority, of course, are not so wealthy. And some, in fact, are miserably poor. Nevertheless, the fact is that whether a person is rich or poor, hardly anyone is truly happy. Superficially, the wealthy do appear to be having a nice time. And by contrast, misery seems to be a constant companion of the poor. However, if you look closely, almost everyone, without exception, is full of anxiety and insecurity. Only the fears of the rich and of the poor are different. At the same time, there are a few people who seem to be quite happy all the time, without a care in the world. Why is there so much difference and variation? Some say that money is the key to happiness, and yet that does not really seem to be the case. At best, all that money seems to guarantee is temporary pleasure. What then is the secret of real happiness? For decades, Swami has been discussing precisely that, but unfortunately, few have been paying attention. So, let's make up for lost time and try to get a crash course on the essential aspects of Swami's teachings. These days, almost everyone, both the rich and the poor, is cut off from nature. It is all so crowded everywhere. In ancient times, this was not the case. People lived mostly in the open and communed freely with nature. And they often wondered, what are all these different things that I see around me? Where did they come from? Is there a purpose in all that exists, or none at all? If there is indeed a purpose, then what exactly is that purpose? Where did I come from? And how do I fit into all this? Is there any meaning and purpose to my life? And if so, what is it? Who determined that purpose and why? What is called knowledge emerged from the answers to questions like these. It is humans alone that have the special ability to reflect, ponder, inquire, investigate, reason, seek solutions, and to acquire knowledge. In other words, humans are unique because they have this amazing ability to be conscious of many things, including the universe and all that it contains. Since God is the source of the universe, everything that is in it, including our capacity to be aware and conscious, has naturally come from God. So, let us start with God Himself. God, the Creator, is abstract, formless and eternal, and is best described as the ultimate. And most religions emphatically proclaim that fact, no question about it. On the other hand, most devotees of Baba tend to think of God in terms of Swami alone. However, as Swami himself has told us any number of times, avatars are just the embodied form of the Supreme One, special forms though. In other words, an avatar is God with form, a form that He assumes for a specific purpose and for a limited time only. At the abstract level, Almighty God, the Supreme One, call Him what you will, is nothing but pure consciousness. That is why the Vedas declare Prajnanum Brahma, which literally means God is absolute or pure consciousness. Since God is pure consciousness, and since everything, including us, has come from Him, it is natural that some aspects of consciousness are present in creation also. However, consciousness is not visible to the eye, and we therefore cannot see it, nor can we detect it with instruments either. Consciousness is thus beyond the senses. That is the first lesson we must learn. Nevertheless, this consciousness is present everywhere in the universe. Further, its power is immanent in everything in the universe, from the cosmos to volcanoes, cyclones, avalanches, tigers, elephants, and even the tiny ant.
For all this, there is only one main cause.
చూడండి ఇప్పుడే వచ్చినాయి ఎన్ని బల్బులు కనిపిస్తున్నాయి.
You find so many bulbs illumining.
ఇవి ఎంచుకోవడానికి పోతే చాలా ఉన్నాయి.
You can count, there are many.
ఇన్ని నంబర్స్ అయినటువంటి బల్బులు అన్నిటి ఎందుకు ఒక్కటే ఉన్నది ప్రధానం.
There is only one current that flows in all these bulbs.
ఆ కరెంట్ ఒక్కటే మాత్రమే సత్యమైనటువంటిది.
That current is the principle.
It is to remind us of that omnipresence of God that Swami often says, bulbs are many, but current is one. Jalaluddin Rumi is a famous Sufi poet who lived in the 13th century. In a poem describing how consciousness evolves in creation, Rumi says, I dyed a mineral and became a plant. I dyed a plant and rose an animal. I dyed an animal and I was a man. Why should I fear? When was I less by dying? Yet once more shall I die to soar with blessed angels. But even from angelhood I must pass on. All except God perishes. When I have sacrificed my angel soul, I shall become that which no mind ever conceived. Oh, let me not exist, for non-existence proclaims, to Him we shall return. The question now becomes, are we aware that we have come from God and that life in the human form has been given to us so that we may go back to God? I'm afraid that most of us do not know that. Baba adds that on the contrary, we waste our lives without even bothering to inquire about such matters. Which is why he often asks us various questions related to our true nature and also supplies the answers. Here is a sample. He asks, "Who are you?" And he gives the answer, "You are the Atma." He asks, "Where did you come from?" And he gives the answer, "From the Supreme Self." He asks, "Where are you supposed to go?" And he gives the answer, "Back to the Supreme Self." Baba then adds, "Knowing this truth, engage yourself in acts that would help you to enjoy the bliss of the Supreme, also known as the Supreme Self and as Atma. We start with the fact that God, as Swami tells us again and again, is omnipresent. That means consciousness is present everywhere in the universe, from the galaxies to the ant. As scholars declare, consciousness sleeps in a stone, stirs in a plant, awakens in an animal, and flowers in a human. What this means is that consciousness is passive in inanimate beings, but becomes active in living beings, though to different degrees. What is particularly important is that amongst all living beings, consciousness expresses itself best in humans. How it does so we shall see shortly. But for the moment, let us remember that human birth is really special because it is humans alone who can give the highest expression to the divinity latent within. By the way, that also is the reason why Swami often tells us that of all births, the human form is a rare privilege and special blessing.
The human being is really very lucky. Human life is so sacred. Of all the living creatures, human life is available. This sacred human life is made unsacred.
The question now becomes, how and to what extent does consciousness flower in a human? Before we can consider the answer to this question, we need some background. Swami says that every human being is made up of three distinct entities, namely the gross body, the subtle mind, and the Atma, which is the cause for all. Where do all these come from? Let us start with the body. You and I would say that the body is made up of flesh, bones, blood, etc. Very true. But then flesh, blood, bones, etc. are made up of molecules of various kinds. And molecules in turn are made up of atoms. Okay, but where do these atoms come from? You know something? Every single atom in every human body can, in principle, be traced all the way back to the beginning of the universe, to the so-called Big Bang, with which the universe is supposed to have been born. By the way, this is not something I am making up. This is what modern science says. Thus, our body is verily connected to the beginning of creation. Since creation itself came from the Creator, we can say that our body really came from God. And you know what? Just to constantly remind us that we all came from Him, God has decided to make our heart His permanent residence. That is what Swami himself often tells us. Since Atma is just another name for God, and since God dwells within us, it means that Atma also is a part of us. From all this we learn that we not only have a body complete with senses and the brain, but also the Atma within us, of course. As a result, we can speak of not only bodily genes, but also of spiritual or divine genes. The difference is that while the physical or bodily genes come from the parents and through them from the ancestors, the divine genes come directly from God or Atma. It is by way of stressing this important fact that Swami sometimes addresses his devotees as Divyatma Swarupalara, meaning embodiments of the divine Atma. We are now left with the question, we also have a mind, don't we? Where does that come from? You are all aware that even animals have brains, which is a part of the gross body of the animal concerned. Thus, the rat has a brain, the monkey has a brain, elephant has a brain, and so on. The brain is very much like the CPU of a computer.